So, good morning, everybody. This is a meeting of South Cambridgeshire District Council Cabinet. I think we've got all members of Cabinet here today. Councillor Bradman from Scrutiny and Overview, and various officers supporting us. So it's quite a big agenda with a lot of finance in it. I will take questions from Cabinet members first, and then anyone else in the room, and then anyone online if anybody's joining us online. But if you'd keep your microphone off until it's your turn to speak, but please do indicate online by raising your hand if you would like to speak. So we'll start off with item 1, which is apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies, please, Habs?
No apologies for absence, Chair.
Thank you. Any declarations of interest relating to this agenda? No, if anything comes up, you can just raise it at the time. Minutes of previous meetings. We've got 3 lots of minutes. There's a correction on the minutes of the 24th of November. It says Elaine Wilson. It should be Eileen Wilson. I'm happy to propose these minutes as a correct record. Councillor Milnes, second, thank you. Is everybody happy with the minutes as written? Agreed. So, agreed. Thank you very much. The Cabinet therefore agrees the approval of the minutes held on the 24th and 25th of November and 2nd of December as a correct record by affirmation. Now, I don't have any announcements, and I believe we don't have any public questions either. Good, right. So we're going to move on to item 6, which is an update from Scrutiny and Overview. Welcome, Councillor Bradnam. Thank you very much for coming. I think you're going to report on your meeting with the Cambridge University hospitals and then interject on later on in the agenda. So over to you now.
Thank you very much, Leader. So first, it's in 2 sections from 2 meetings. Firstly, our meeting on the 8th of December, when actually the Cambridge University hospitals had asked to come and speak to Scrutiny and Overview. They had asked themselves, as it were, to come and speak to Scrutiny and Overview because they valued what we contribute. I think they had possibly also, no, that's a different thing. So they talked to us about the strategy that they're going to have to adopt in order to accommodate the increasing population in the area, and clearly they recognise that the current model that they have isn't going to work, and so they need to adopt a new model, which broadly equates to moving from hospital to community, analogue to digital, and a third element, which I apologise I can't remember, but the basic principle is much more treatment in the community. Obviously, people who need to be hospitalised will still go to hospital, but a big emphasis towards community. So in fact, many of our questions in the Scrutiny and Overview Committee centred on, is the money going to go with that? And are we going to be able to have planning to be able to provide locations, these health hubs that they were talking about, community hubs in the community where health provision can be provided. And so, for example, in the note that Natalie has kindly provided in your agenda papers, neighbourhood health centres were not an optional extra. They were deemed to be critical for enabling the different model of care that the acute care strategy described. And so we asked things like, will specific buildings need to be incorporated in development plans, or will commuted sums be provided for the space that's going to be reserved for such hubs? And we also talked about the fact that often in planning, we say, there's a community request provision for healthcare, and planning can't provide it because healthcare haven't asked or won't provide staff, or sometimes such a place is built and then there's no staff for it from the ICB. So there's quite a lot of concern there. So in short, we asked also questions about, given the analogue to digital, we were asking, will it be possible for people in the community who aren't comfortable using technology, how will their needs be covered? And we also talked, because they want to build this new acute hospital, which is the reason that they'd come to explain, you know, will there be funding for it? How will that be brought forward? And it hinged on the fact that this acute hospital has to replace the existing hospital because it's out of certainly the A&E section is very out of date. So we recognised the need, but I think they got a very clear view from the Scrutiny and Overview Committee that they need to also, they can't just provide the one thing, they've got to provide a way to achieve the care in the community as well. I'll leave it there, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Are there any questions to Councillor Bradnam? No, thank you. It was very nice that you were invited, weren't you? You were asked to invite them to come. That's quite unusual. So,
I think they're
Mills?
keen. It speaks well for the work that the Scrutiny and Overview Committee do.
Yeah.
And indeed, we've had a similar interaction with Peter Freeman of the Cambridge Growth Company, also talking to City Scrutiny Committee. So I think they recognise that we can add value. One of the other things I meant to add was that in this concern for how this would be delivered, we were saying there has to be a link between the Cambridge Growth Company and this method of provision, because there has to be an understanding between the funders as to how we're going to deliver this in community care.
Agreed. Councillor Mills?
Actually, that's fine. I was just going to make exactly that point, and the conversation that we had here with Peter Freeman dwelt on this issue for some time, so that's fine. You mentioned that now. Thank you.
That's the subject of another that's the subject of another response from me to this committee, to Cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, right, so that was not very helpful. Okay, so moving on to item 7, which is the General Fund Revenue and Capital Budget. And I'm going to ask Councillor John Williams to introduce this, and I'm very happy to second it. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Leader. Well, the Fair Funding Review is here, and as we expected, it has taken from us a considerable amount of our income from taxation, and because over the last 7 years we've been preparing for this day, we're able to have reserves to enable us to weather this. It's going to be difficult because, as you can see from our core spending powers in paragraph 22, while the coming financial year is covered by government grants, the following 3 years will see a reduction in our core spending power as a result of basically the government combining the money it's giving us to offset the loss of some £10 million from business rates and the cost of introducing food waste collection. And it would appear that the government has put those together and after next year is reducing that grant by a third over those following 3 years. And it's not clear whether they're reducing our contribution, it's reducing the grant that it's giving us to make up for the loss of business rates, or it's also reducing the grant it's giving us for introducing food waste collection. But what it does mean is that, as you can see in paragraph 22, that we are facing a reduction in our core spending power. So this is not the time to be talking about council tax freezes or reductions. In fact, we need, and the government expects us to collect the maximum amount of council tax that we are allowed to. So in the circumstances of the Fair Funding Review, we have no choice but to seek to increase council tax by 2.99%, which is the maximum that we can do, which in effect means an increase of just over £5, £5.24. And then that will mean that the council tax for an average Band D property is about £180 a year, not a month, a year. And obviously that, is something that we have to do. But as you can understand, it's a small increase. We'll still be within the top 25% of those councils that have the lowest council tax rates. So, yes, the council tax is going up, but for our residents, it is, as I say, in an average home, we're looking at something like just over £5 increase per year for the year, which is, just over 10p a week. And given that this will ensure that we are continuing with the services that this council offers, which by all accounts, by measured by not just our key performance indicators, but also by our peers, as being a good quality, well-run council, and we are continuing with that. And we continue to be a financially sound council, despite the fact that we, as I say, have to find this extra money to make up for the loss of our business rates, which, is not a small amount of money. It's £10 a year, £10 million a year, but, and we have to make that up. Otherwise, we would be having to look for cuts in our services. But we don't have to do that because, as I say, we have built up reserves. We have been anticipating this fair funding review, and because of that, we're able to, as I say, weather this. But it does mean that we have to put council tax up.
Thank you very much. And it's difficult to understand why the government should be so reluctant to identify the food waste money within the settlement. One can only assume it means that it's inadequate to actually meet ours or any other council's need. And it quite clearly shows that, what we expected of money being moved away from the south into the north and from districts into upper tier authorities is now a reality and is now beginning to bite. But sensible decision making over the last 8 years means that we are largely shock-proof, but it's still a very tough situation. Councillor Milnes, to start with.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Williams might want to confirm the rough figures with this, but I just wanted to note that the district council tax proportion of the council tax bill is relatively small. So the county council and other, in fact, I believe that there are even some parish councils that their precept is more on absolute terms than our own. So we're very much keeping our elements of the council tax as low as possible. And then, yes, the extra burdens that we mentioned, so food waste collection, separate food waste collection that's imminent now, in fact being rolled out now, but also the cost of LGR, for example, and it's another example of the government asking us to take on additional financial burdens and not giving us any coverage of that. So it's very disappointing. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments? Yes, Councillor Warren-Breen.
Just very briefly, I just want to add to the food waste. For residents, for the avoidance of doubt, because residents have been asking me about whether this is an initiative that we are rolling out or whether it's government. It's just for the avoidance of doubt. It is a government-led initiative. It has the aim of it is good because it is going to help the environment. In terms of the cost of it, that is something that we have now as a burden, but upon us which we were promised funding for. And I think it's important the residents understand that. So any residents that listen to this or pick this meeting up, it's useful for them to know that it's not something that we can avoid. And also, we are rolling it out. It's going well so far, and the team are working really, really hard to make sure that the cost is maintained and contained, so that it won't balloon out of all proportion, and to make sure that the government do give us the money that they have promised to us.
Thank you very much. I gather there are some councils considering refusing to do it because they're not getting the new burdens funding. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. Any other cabinet members? Councillor Bradnam? And I didn't invite you in to talk on the
budget.
Yeah, on the budget.
Is this the right place to do it?
Yes, no, now, yes. So
Yes,
sorry, I should have brought you in earlier.
Because
my apologies.
Our scrutiny and
Yes, my
overview has
apologies.
informed the
I should have
papers.
brought you in earlier.
Oh, it's okay, don't worry, I wasn't sure quite when to ask. But so we looked at the Scrutiny and Overview Committee, reviewed the detailed directorate draft budgets for 2026-27 at our meeting on the 15th of January, and raised a number of questions which you might want to be reminded about. That it's all in the papers, but I will just draw some to your attention. One of the things we were concerned about, we mentioned under taxi licensing, because there had been a huge increase in the number of licenses that had been applied for in the authority, and we were trying to work out why that had happened, particularly as it was from those who lived out of the area. Is that okay?
Sorry, Liz was just telling me there is going to be a briefing on this very issue, but please
On the
continue.
taxi licensing?
Sorry, yes. So,
Lovely, yes.
but
We
please
were concerned because there appeared to have been a big increase in the number of licenses, the number of licenses that were being issued, and mindful of the situation we have been subject to in the past, where we've had a lot of taxis, operators and vehicles being licensed at Wolverhampton because it was less expensive to do that. We did not want to find ourselves in the same situation the other way around. So I'm glad we're going to have a briefing on that, and thank you, Liz. We looked at the climate, waste and environment budget and noted the cost of the large increase in food waste collection costs. It was highlighted at the time that it was a new cost burden for the council. We had been promised separate ring-fenced funding for this, but I understand it was wrapped up in an overall funding settlement, which was somewhat difficult to tease out as to whether we were going to get support for this in a meaningful way. So we were concerned about that. We were pleased to note that the data and intelligence team has been set up or expanded, or plans to be expanded. And I'll just read this. It was felt that there was an understanding of where this was to end up and what type of team capability there would be at the end of the budget period. And it was recognised that we wanted clarity on that and how that team was going to assist us. I mean, clearly there's a need. We also, there were questions about why less money had been spent on community chest, and it was recognised that actually fewer applications to that had been received, so that was fair enough. It was undersubscribed. We applauded the increase in the increase in the reserve for the nature strategy, and we wanted to encourage the council in its commitment to the nature strategy. Another point was the youth engagement service. Coincidentally, I had been invited along as chair of planning to a number of the events for the youth engagement service, both events in primary schools. One was the actual engagement event, and one was an award ceremony. And really good, I mean, excellent, and indeed award-winning performance of our youth engagement service, getting children to understand the importance of planning at an early stage and understanding how they could contribute, and a lovely exercise on Cambridge Science Park, looking at the nature strategy there as well and trying to get youngsters involved with that. The thing that the Scrutiny and Overview Committee wanted to ask was there any way of expanding the youth engagement service outside just planning and into other areas of what the council does, so that youngsters who are often come up with some really lovely ideas could contribute elsewhere in the work that we do as a council. I think I'll leave it there for the time being, but and thank you very much to Natalie Gandy for writing up the report, making it easy for me.
Thank you. Some very interesting feedback. Councillor Williams, do you want to comment on any of that?
Thank you. Well, I will comment on the food waste, because I think this is really important, and it is one of the difficulties that we have had in putting this budget together, in that we were under the impression that we would be refunded 100% on food waste collection. It's clear that we're not being funded 100%. It is. Oh, it's clear we're not. You know, if you look at it, we're not. Either we're not being funded 100%, or we're nowhere near being compensated for the loss of our business rates. But we can't. Unfortunately, we can't identify what is actually true, because the government has deliberately wrapped the two together. And it's not just us. I understand district councils up and down the country are facing the same issue, that they cannot identify whether the government has reimbursed them for food waste 100% or has not reimbursed them for food waste 100%, because they've wrapped in this compensation for the loss of business rates as well. So very confusing. You know, I think the government really needs to come clean on what it's actually done, because it's not helping anyone at the moment. But at the end of the day, the outcome has been that we have not receiving as much government support as we've been led to believe we would receive, and as a result, as I said, our core spending power is going down as a result.
Thank you. Councillor Braddon?
Just briefly, that is the same experience that has been experienced at the County Council, this combining of things, which has been very difficult to tease out as to what's covering what.
Yeah, and the DCN has lobbied hard for that those sums to be separated, and and you know, with some ministerial with some MP support, and it's just been refused. So, hey ho. Okie doke, if there are no more questions, we'll go to the recommendations, which are set out on page 35 and 36. I won't read them because there's lots of them. So, do members agree with the recommendations?
Agree.
Anyone voting against? Anyone abstaining? Nope. Cabinet therefore agrees the proposals. Thank you very much. Moving on swiftly to item 8, the housing revenue account. Revenue and capital budget for 26-27. Councillor John Batchelor will present this, and I think I said I'd second it. I think yes. Councillor Batchelor.
I understood I was seconding that.
You were second. I'm sorry, Councillor Williams was doing it. That's why I'm confused. Sorry, I've had a bad night's sleep, I'm afraid. But, thank you, Councillor Williams. Over to you. Apologies.
Thank you, Leader. Well, I think the main point to make about the housing revenue account is it is ring-fenced. We cannot subsidise it or support it from council tax. So basically, with few exceptions, but basically our income from the housing revenue account, which is basically from our tenants in paying their rents, has to also pay for the new build programme. And as a result of that, we have to use the maximum that we can to in rental income, to ensure that we have sufficient funds to enable us to finance our new build programme, which, as I say, you know, which we all know, we've passed the 100 council home this year, and we're heading towards that sort of in the region of 113 by the end of this financial year. But unfortunately, the people who are basically funding that are our council tenants, and we can't do anything about that. You know, by law, we cannot subsidise that that housing revenue account from council tax. Therefore, we use rents not only for maintaining our council house stock and managing that stock. We also have to use rents to pay for the loans that we have to take out to build the new homes. So as a result of that, we are having to put rents up by 4.8%, which is the maximum that we are allowed to do, which is inflation plus 1%. And that inflation is calculated as it was as the Consumer Price Index at September 2025 last year. But that is something that we have to do if we want to have a big house building programme. And it's clearly, we have over 2,000 on our housing waiting list, and it's clearly our duty to be providing them with decent homes, and that requires us to have a large house building programme. And I'm very delighted that, you know, I think last year we built more council homes than any other district council. So, you know, we should be rightly proud of that in providing those people on a housing waiting list with homes. But there is again, once again, the government has stepped in and caused us a bit of grief for this coming budget, because we were expecting to be allowed to introduce rent convergence policy, which meant that we wanted to ensure that, you know, all our tenants, apart from those in new properties who pay affordable rents, are paying the same rent. Unfortunately, the government has now said we can't do that for the coming financial year. So that does mean some changes to the capital programme. I think John will, in seconding this, have some more details on that. Thanks.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Batchelor?
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, with the government being ever helpful, we've only learnt in the last couple of days that what was described as convergence, i.e., as John has just been saying, that's bringing our social rents up to a target rent, which is a formula that the government prescribes and says is the level of rent that we should be able to collect. So that means that our recommendations have to change on the... So recommendation C, which speaks to that about social rent going up by £2, that is no longer the case. We expected that to come in this year. The government has now said it will start in 27-28 with a £1 increase and 28-29 with a £2, but effectively C has to now come out altogether, as that no longer applies, and so then D and E just get updated as C and D and so on. Okay, and then passing, that's cost us £450,000. I just say a few words. Often there's confusion about rents and so on. As John has said, we're increasing by the government formula 4.8%. It may be worth saying that every other council in the country is doing exactly the same. So there's nothing unusual in any of that, and it isn't excessive in any way. Also on rents, there's some useful information on page 140 and 141, which actually explains our rent structure. We have two levels of rent for council tenants. We have a social rent, which is for our existing properties. That rent on average is around £130. That compares to what the government thinks should be the rent, which is £139. We only have 14% of our tenants on the 139. 86% pay the lower rate. So that's social rent. We also have affordable rent, which is a higher level in order to be able to fund our building and acquisition program. And that currently runs at £194 per property on average per week. Our affordable rent properties are 670 odd, just over 11% of our stock. So that's where we are with that. The convergence is something that the government actually created the problem in the first place by stopping us increasing, not only stopping us increasing, but actually demanded that we reduced our rents by 1% each year for 4 years. And it's not just 1%, of course, it's inflation plus 1%. And that has damaged our financial position dramatically. In particular, the government again demanded some years back that we actually buy back from the government the properties by borrowing money from them. And so we have more than £200 million of debt, which we were moving towards paying off in 30 years. That is now impossible, so we're only paying interest on that. And so hopefully at some stage we can negotiate some capital arrangements there. And the other thing to say is that something around 40-odd% of our tenants are either have their rents paid through benefits, either in full or part, and that will continue and fully cover any rent increases. So that's me, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. That's all very interesting. Right, any other questions? Councillor Milnes?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to point out that we have a very demanding programme for making sure our properties, our new properties particularly, are thermally efficient. We've got a thermal efficiency retrofit programme in place, and these measures will bring down the cost of ownership or letting to our residents and keep their costs low. And it just is one aspect of our housing policy that I think we should all be rightfully proud of. I know we've got a development adjacent to us here where we're looking at passive house standards, although we won't necessarily go for that certification, which is a good indication of lowering running costs for our tenants. And just like to applaud our housing team for doing that work. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Any other points? No? It was a huge pleasure to go and help cut a kind of ribbon on the 100th new council house in the last 12 months, and 160 more planned for the forthcoming year. So we're just going from strength to strength. Thank you to Martin Lee for a really...
Just on that,
yes.
The actual forward numbers are in excess of 600 now over the next 2-3 years. So, you know, we've laid a very good foundation that's ongoing.
Yeah, fantastic. I was just saying thank you to Martin Lee for a really clearly set out paper. And I should have said thank you to Fazana for the last one, which was equally clearly set out. Okay, if there's no more questions, we'll go to the recommendations, which are on page 135 and 136, but we are taking out recommendation C. So do members agree with the recommendations?
Agree.
Anyone wish to vote against? Anyone abstaining? So council therefore approves the proposals. Thank you. And now item 9, more money matters. Treasury management strategy. This is Councillor Williams again, and I think I am seconding this one. So over to you, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Leader. Very straightforward. It's changes to the Treasury strategy, bring it up to date with the revised figures for this year. So it's the track changes in the document, so it's fairly straightforward to see where the changes are. Only one thing though, in Annex B, we look at the capital programme and financing going forward, and obviously that the HRA figure will change as a result of the situation we now find ourselves in with the rent. So that presumably we will be issuing a revision, hopefully before full council, but that figure there will change. That HRA line will change.
Thank you very much. Any questions on this? No, thank you. And thank you for the track changes. It makes it so much easier to read. And thank you to Martin and Dan Hasler for the report. So recommendations are nice and short, set out on page 177. Do members agree with the recommendations?
Agree.
Anyone voting against? Anyone abstaining? So Cabinet therefore agrees the recommendations. Thank you. And a bit more meaty now, the capital strategy. Again, Councillor John Williams, and I think Councillor Peter MacDonald is going to second this. So, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Leader. Well, again, it's straightforward. It's basically bringing things up to date. Again, we have track changes, so you can see where the changes are. But yeah, there's nothing more to say on that. It's just really revising it to bring it up to where we are for the coming year.
Thank you, Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased to second this report. As been alluded to before, thanks to the investment in the council house, the stock within South Cambs, which I believe we broke the record recently, 113 homes, I seem to recall. So I would like to second the capital strategy. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, and thank you to David Hill for this report. Okay, any other questions, please? No. So recommendations set out on page 219. Do members agree with the recommendations?
Agree.
Anyone voting against? Anyone abstaining? The Cabinet therefore agrees the recommendations. And moving on to localised council tax support, which is always quite complex. Councillor Williams and I think Councillor Henry Batchelor is going to second it.
Thank you, Leader. This follows a consultation that was undertaken into a number of changes that we proposed. Option A here provides a fair and balanced approach to address those issues that were raised in the consultation. And the purpose basically of this is to make the application for localised council tax simpler, more straightforward, more understandable, and yeah, again, it's basically bringing up to date the scheme that we currently have.
Thank you very much. Councillor Batchelor?
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Obviously, as Cabinet Member for Communities, keen to support anything that supports people within our communities. As Councillor Williams has said, the option we have in the papers in front of us seems to be the most balanced and fair for them as well as us as the authority, so more than happy to support.
Thank you. Yeah, an imperative to make it as easy for people to understand and access as possible. Sometimes these things can be surprisingly convoluted. Any other questions on this one? No. Okay, so option A is set out at 17 on page 243. Do members agree with the acceptance of option A?
Agree.
Anyone voting against? Anyone abstaining? So members therefore agree to adopt option A. Thank you. And slight change in tack here. We're now on the climate and nature strategy. So that's going to be Councillor Natalie Warren Green is going to propose this, and I'm happy to second it. So Councillor Warren Green.
This is a really good news story, and there's been quite a lot of discussion about the climate and nature strategy over the last year and more. So it's great to see it coming through. The team have worked really hard on it. Very briefly, because there will be a recommendation, I hope, following the Climate and Environment Advisory Committee recommendation that this is ready to come to us and probably ready for full council, that, you know, we should be having a full discussion about it at full council. So at Cabinet, I think all there is to say really is that this brings together the zero carbon and the doubling nature strategy. There's been extensive public engagement. We have previously had the feedback, being able to look at the papers and around the feedback from the public. There have been some adaptations and an additional theme that has been introduced as a result of that, which deals with adaptation and resilience. And the concerns of the public have been addressed in revisions of the strategy. Key to this strategy is that what's been built in to the thinking is we are going to be going through local government reorganisation, and while we do that, we need to keep up the momentum on our environmental initiatives, climate initiatives, and this should put us in a really strong position to continue to do that while LGR rolls in. So I'm very pleased to be presenting this to you, and I'm absolutely confident that it is ready to go to full council if you agree, but happy to take questions.
Thank you. I'm delighted with this, and the final report is really exciting. In fact, I used it to write an article for quite a sort of a new eminent body, actually, which seemed to land quite well. So I just pinched all the data from this, which shows that people in South Cambridgeshire and Cambridge City really, really care about their environment, and you know, we hope that the government of whatever persuasion appreciates that, and appreciates that we all have an obligation to support what really matters to people, and the amount of things that people are actually doing themselves was impressive. Lots of people are doing lots of different things, from reducing air travel to, you know, upping their recycling and you know, many more things. So it's a really comprehensive report. I thought it was excellent. So thank you to Grace Warden for putting this together. But I think there was a small team working really hard on it. So any questions from anybody? No? Good. I really look forward to this being talked about in full council. So right. So sorry, I'm going back to Okay, so right. Okay, so page 267, please. The recommendations. So, do Cabinet agree with the recommendations?
Agree.
Anyone voting against? Anyone seconding? So everyone. So Cabinet therefore. Seconding. Abstaining. I told you I had a really bad night's sleep. So likely somebody fall down to the desk actually. Right, and I'm too hot. Right. Cabinet therefore agrees to the proposals. Thank you. Right, I'll get my act together now. Need to drink more coffee, I think. Okay, so we're now moving on to, so item 13 is, am I doing this because we're withdrawing item 13 and 14, aren't we? So the next two items on the agenda, 13 and 14, sorry, okay, is that okay? Relating to the draft recap interim resources and waste strategy and the recap policy design guide do not require cabinet approval. Delegations were put in place apparently. So in accordance with number 74 of part 3 of table 4, responsibility of executive functions as contained within our constitution, both will be dealt with as a lead cabinet member decision, and the documents are here with you for oversight and transparency purposes. So we can leap straight on now to item 15, which is the Community Infrastructure Levy draft charging schedule constitution, and this is quite a big deal really. So Councillor Toomey Hawkins is going to introduce this, and Councillor Brian Milnes will be seconding it.
Thank you, Leader. The community infrastructure levy, and I have to be very careful when I pronounce this because it trips my tongue. I'll keep it as SIL. I mean, in simple terms, SIL is a way of making sure that when new development happens, it helps pay for the things that makes daily life work, which is what people are concerned about. Roads, buses, cycle routes, etc. Now, why haven't we done this before? Because we did try back in 2014, but the government was talking about abolishing SIL and doing all kinds of things, so we held back. But now what we realize is that the transport infrastructure that was specified in the transport strategy for Cambridge and South Cambs, which was adopted back in 2014, needs about 856 million to deliver, which is a lot of money. And even with government funding through the City Deal, now GCP, there's still a gap of about 270 million. And the system that we rely on, the Section 106, isn't designed to plug that hole. Hence, we're now looking to introduce SIL. We estimate that we could probably get about 25 million over the next 5 years, maybe up to 50, depending on the level of growth that we expect. And that money can then be pooled to use for the big infrastructure projects. There's a schedule of what we want to consult on. This is a consultation that we're asking for, really. But the benefit definitely is something that our communities will be looking forward to, especially parish councils who might end up getting between 15 and 25% to spend on their local priorities. So, as I said, it's to consult. We're not thinking of switching overnight. The idea is to explain the proposal, listen very carefully, get the balance right. And so just asking Cabinet to enable us to go out to consultation, and then we'll come back with the final schedule to be looked at before submitting to the examiner.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. Councillor Milnes?
Yes, I'm happy to support this proposal and just reflect on the fact that transport infrastructure is one of the limiting factors in our area, and this will add a positive amount to the that transport infrastructure. So with that in mind, I'm happy to recommend. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Have we got any questions on this? Right, Councillor Williams.
Yeah, I'd just like, thank you, Lee. I'd just like to add that I think our parish councils will benefit enormously from this, because it is very difficult sometimes using the 106 to be able to properly compensate for the mitigation, for the impacts of certain large-scale developments, because the 106 is so site-specific that it sometimes is difficult to make a case for a 106 case, and this should help our parish councils identify impacts that they would like to see mitigated that go beyond the immediate site of a development.
Thank you. So I know when this was discussed years and years ago, it looked like at the time that parish councils would do badly out of it, but I think that's changed now, hasn't it? So, I mean, I know parish councils will want to know if this has any impact on them that's not beneficial.
Yes, Leader, which is why I mentioned that they will be getting at least 15%, maybe up to 25%, depending.
Okay, and do they have to identify specific projects?
No, that's what Section 106, they have to identify specific projects, but for SIL they don't, which is why SIL would be good for them, because they can then use the SIL that they get to do other things.
It has to be capital things, or can they?
I'm not sure. I think Stephen Kelly might be able to explain better.
Just to clarify, yes, if there is if a parish has a neighbourhood plan, then it will receive 25% of the receipts through SIL within its area, and if it doesn't have a neighbourhood plan, it will be 15%. There is a requirement every year for the parish and for the council to report on what they have done with the receipts. It's just cash. It's not limited to capital or revenue, but clearly it's one-off funding in terms of local parishes. So it is something that is probably not sound in terms of its use for revenue funding for longer-term projects.
Okay, so, I mean, it's a shame there's now no funding for more neighbourhood plans, isn't there? Because there's a real incentive to get them done, isn't it? But okay, I think we might have to have a conversation about that.
I'm
at some
afraid
stage
the
about
government
how we-
seems to take with one hand and give with another, so.
Yeah, okay. Righty-ho. So the consultation will last for how long? Be sort of 8 weeks, will it, starting from 6?
The intention is to conclude the consultation before the pre-election period starts, so that we are ready to take forward the next steps in the summer when the council reconvenes.
Okay, fine. And we can talk outside the meeting about how we publicise that to make sure it gets to the right people. Okay, if there's no other questions, then recommendations are set out at 8 and 9 on page 548. So do members agree with the recommendations?
Agreed.
Anyone voting against? Anyone abstaining? No, so Cabinet therefore agrees the recommendations. Thank you. And going on to planning obligations, SPD, which I know an awful lot of work has gone into, because I've seen this at numerous occasions. So Councillor Hawkins again, and I'll second it.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. The plan obligations SPD is, I guess, our rule book, or better still, how this works in practice, guide for Section 106 agreements. It explains clearly and in one place what we may seek to ask developers to contribute when they build new homes or workplaces, and how that process works. For things like affordable housing, open spaces, play areas, and the usual stuff that we all care about. It's important because it enables developers to see ahead of time, what we will be asking them for. It helps planning applications move mostly forward because we know Section 106 agreements take a long time sometimes, and that's what we find sometimes slows down the process of actually issuing notices when applications have been permitted. We've had 2 rounds of public consultation, the last one last summer, and we had over 140 responses from residents, parish councils, developers, and officers have listened carefully, made changes where appropriate, and the version we have before us today reflects that feedback. Now, obviously, residents will benefit because infrastructure is seen to be planned more consistently alongside growth. And developers will benefit because they know upfront what we expect of them. And parish councils will benefit from clearer links, especially when they've got neighbourhood plans. And of course, councillors on the planning committee will benefit because we have a robust, up-to-date document that supports sound decision-making. So it's not creating new policy, it's just explaining how the existing policies will be applied. So happy to recommend that this be adopted as on page 7 to 9 of our report. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. So, I mean, this is a massive improvement on what went before, which I found very, very complicated. So hopefully this will, this will make it much, much simpler for developers and agents and members of the public, and will hopefully deliver much better outcomes as well. So thank you very much to James Fisher, John Dixon, and Lauren Wilkinson for James Fisher, sorry, and Lauren Wilkinson for this, because I know it has been a tremendous amount of work. Any questions for anybody else? No, good. So this gets approved at this point. It doesn't need to go to full council. Yeah, so we're approving this. We're approving the adoption of this now. Excellent. Good. Thank you very much indeed. So the recommendations are at 3, bottom of page 7 to 9. Do members agree with the recommendations?
Agreed.
Anyone voting against? Anyone abstaining? So So members therefore agree the recommendations. Good, that's a good result. Lovely. Moving on to the authority monitoring report for Greater Cambridge 24-25, another massive piece of work. So Councillor Toomey Hawkins to introduce, and I think Councillor Henry Batchelor is going to second.
Thank you, Leader. We do seem to come up with items that have a big number of pages to go through. But this one is definitely action-packed. And yeah, thank you, to the officers who've put it together. I guess it's the monitoring report, the authority monitoring report for 24-25. And it tells how well we are delivering our local plans in Greater Cambridge, both Cambridge City and South Cambs. So I'll just maybe give you some highlights, a few figures. In that year, 24-25, 2,264 new homes were completed across Greater Cambridge, the highest number since 2011. This is against the long-term target of 1,675 homes per year. So we have quite a strong pipeline. And even more impressive, we granted planning permission for 9,900 homes in South Cambridgeshire in just that 1 year. And this was spread across Waterbeach, Newtown East, Bon Airfield, New Village, and Darwin Green Phase 2 and 3. And of that, we have 687 affordable homes completed, which is 30% of all new housing that was delivered. And of those, 424 were in South Cambridgeshire. Employment space is booming. We've got 10,893 square meters in Cambridge, 51,956 square meters in South Cambridgeshire. And the biggest of these were 11,000 in Granta Park and 8,000 of offices in Lockton House. And there is more on the way. We've got just over 400,000 square meters of employment space, which has been granted planning permission. There is, however, one red flag, and that is retail space, which is shrinking. South Cambs, we lost 402 square meters of shops, and in City, they lost 7,300 square meters of space. That is generally because shops are being swapped for leisure uses. So it's, you might say it's fewer shoe shops and more smoothie shops. On the environmental front, all pollution levels still stayed below national limits. And we still have control of our greenbelt because we did not have any inappropriate developments in our greenbelt. I think those are figures I think I will just highlight. I'm not sure there's any more that, there might be some more, but, neighborhood plans. Excuse me, we mentioned some of that earlier on. We've designated 26 areas and 12 neighborhood plans have been made or adopted. Cambridge City had its very first neighborhood plan in South Newham in that year. So, and I think there will be 4 more in South Cambs coming up at various stages at the moment. So I just say, thank you to my dears for all the work that's gone into this. It's quite a lot of information, and I would recommend that people take some time, have a cup of tea or something and spend some time looking at it. So it's more jobs, more homes, more spaces, cleaner air, protected green spaces. We are delivering. I think that's the message that I'd like to leave us with, is that we are delivering for our communities. Happy to take further questions, or if Mark thinks there's anything I should have said and I've left out. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Batchelor.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. So it's probably worth noting as well, this is something we have to publish as a statutory function. So, we have to report these figures. So, yeah, I'm more than happy to second it on that basis. But I think Councillor Hawkins has done quite a good job of summarising what is several hundreds of pages of information, which we have in full in our papers here. So, you know, I'm not going to propose going into them in a much more further detail. But I think, you know, we've got a clear picture of success essentially in this part of the world. And if we actually look back at previous years, which we have the data for in this document, we can see there's certainly been an improvement over the years in terms of delivery. So, yeah, I'm more than happy to second this report. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. So it's certainly not a document that gathers dust. It's been absolutely vital in our discussions directly with government ministers just over the last week. Quite honestly, it's given me and my colleagues lots of ammunition. So thank you very much to Mark and his team for that. So if there's no more questions, Councillor Bradman.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you very much for the digest from Councillor Hawkins. I appreciate this is a retrospective look back, and so my question may be misplaced, but I'll ask it anyway. On page 1267, it refers to, you know, a very creditable 9,900 dwellings permitted in South Cambridgeshire during the 25 monitoring year, and the majority of these dwellings, 9,000, were the result of 3 outline planning permissions, one of which was at Waterbeach Town East, 4,500 dwellings. Now, I know we've talked about this before, but do we have any traction or leverage on the situation of permissions having been granted, but applications not being built out, permissions not being built out?
So we certainly know what's been built, but I'll go to Mr. Kelly, to Stephen Kelly.
So in respect of, there's two answers to that. The first is we do proactively engage with all the developers as part of setting the housing trajectory to understand what their ambitions are. And through the strategic sites team, where there are developers highlighting issues, we obviously try and work with them to see what is stopping them from bringing sites that we've consented forwards. So you'll see soon the housing trajectory, the 5-year land supply statement and so forth, which is a result of that consultation process and trying to understand it. On Waterbeach East specifically, we are engaging directly with them to understand what are the parameters necessary to see their development come forwards. Clearly the railway station relocation is a Grampian condition on them in terms of commencement, and so they haven't been able to bring anything forward whilst that hasn't yet been completed. The other broader point is the government are consulting in the National Planning Policy Framework about introducing an obligation by condition on developers to start sites earlier, and it will be interesting to see what happens. Historically, of course, it's very difficult to get somebody to spend millions of pounds of their money as just the local authority, and so it is a difficult challenge to crack, but we are doing everything that we can within the current framework to do so.
If I may.
Yes.
Thank you. The reason I asked that is because, okay, we have a bit of a push-me-pull-you at Waterbeach Newtown, where the permission's been granted on the condition that the railway is delivered first. National Railways are planning to build a new station, but there's no sign of any housing coming forward. And what I'm really concerned about is that the community at phase 1 of Waterbeach Newtown might be left, that, you know, they're basically road transport based at the moment. But what I'm really concerned about is that the railway might come forward because National Rail has its very slow and very careful, measured approach to building a new station. But at that time, we're currently in the situation where Waterbeach might be required, you know, that they might be required to close and that's what they've always said, they would close the current station. So we could end up in a situation, and I'm raising it here now because I'm really concerned about it, that we could end up with National Rail going on and building a new station and the old station being closed, which is the one that currently provides for the village, and indeed many other people around. And we end up not having a quantum of housing on the RLW, as Waterbeach Development Company, area to the east. So I will separately maybe have a word with Stephen Kelly, but
I'll
I'm
bring
really
Councillor
concerned
Milnes
about
as
it.
well, because this is somewhat of a GCP question.
So the funded contract has now been made. So the contract has been appointed for this, and there's no intention to close the original station until after the new one has come into play. There's a process that we've gone through, and I've had discussions with various colleagues in the GCP over this, and we're happy that we're following due process in this, but ultimately, because there are questions about whether we could leave two stations open, but ultimately that decision is for Network Rail, and my personal opinion is that it's very unlikely to continue with both stations open because of the close proximity. There's around a mile up the track that the new station will be, and to have two stations in that proximity is very unlikely to happen. But we'll certainly make sure that there is a station open between the two of them. So I think we can allay your fears in that regard.
Well, no, my fears, forgive me, but the condition that there would always be a railway station open was part of the original permission. They weren't allowed to build their first or occupy their first house until the new station was provided. But I do think we need to consider about the over 4,000 residents at Waterbeach Village who currently have access to a station. There is a precedent. Foxton and Shepworth is less than a mile. And I would like us to consider trying to work with Network Rail to keep both stations open. But it's a Network Rail matter, I appreciate that.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Leader. It's very interesting facts and figures here, some of which, go against perceived, perceptions about South Cambs. And one of them is about that we are a very rich district, and everyone who lives in South Cambs earns far more money than those that live in the city. And I'd just like to draw your attention to pages 1575 and 1576, which give the universal credit claimant counts for both districts. And you'll see that actually the claimant count in October 2025 for South Cambs was roughly the same as that in the city, around 2% of our population. So, we do have areas of extreme deprivation in this district, just as much as they do in the city.
Thank you. Those of us in certain areas are well aware of it, actually, so thank you. Okay, if there's no more questions, the recommendations are on page 1265. The slight change, it's number 3. It should say Cabinet is recommended to, not the Executive Councillor. So if we could just note that amendment. Do members agree with the recommendations?
Agree.
Anyone voting against? Anyone abstaining? No, Cabinet therefore approves recommendations. And again, thank you very much, Mark, for all the work on that. Moving on to item 18, the draft corporate action plan. So I will present that, and I think Councillor Milnes will second it. This is just the annual update. I think it's perfectly self-explanatory. It's continuing to do more of the good things that we are currently doing within the corporate plan. But if there's any specific questions, do please ask. Councillor Milnes.
Happy to second this report, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to Kevin Ledger, as always, for great clarity in the reports. Any questions from anybody? Any Cabinet members? No? Councillor Bradnam?
Thank you. This was the second item from the meeting on the 15th of January that Scrutiny and Overview looked at. Some of the things have been covered under previous reports, but just wanted to draw your attention to the fact that although community liaison meetings and forums were recognised to be useful, there's a move to consider how these might be delivered more efficiently, because they can sometimes be somewhat repetitive within the community, and so we're trying to look at there is a move to try and look at a way of improving the way that they work with the communities. Again, youth engagement came up in this committee, and whilst it was absolutely welcomed, it was recognised again that it was being delivered predominantly in primary schools, and we were trying to think of ways that the offer could be tailored to secondary schools so that they would be more able to fit that in with their curricula. There was a challenge to the council on the ways that the planning committee was working, and concerns were expressed by some members in relation to, and I quote those members, time being sold to developers, and it was felt that this should be included in the corporate plan. Those members at the committee were advised that this was referring to developers paying for pre-application pre-application advice. Thank you. Well, no, it was the pre-application attendance at committees, briefings. That's right. So the feeling was that, or the feeling expressed by those members was that they were getting the benefit of community comment on their applications, and they were making a payment for that, and so they were getting committee time, you know, as a payment and paying for it. That was challenged by members within the committee at the time, saying that actually the whole purpose of those pre-application developer briefings is to enable better applications to be formulated and finally come to be submitted, so that when they come to planning committee, those applications have less, you know, things that we need to address. And my feeling is that we've always felt that that has been extremely helpful, and we've had much better developments as a result of developers coming and listening to the comments that we have made about their applications. The other one, which was also related to planning, was about the proposal that water flow measures might be used as a way to overcome the problems with the sufficiency of water, which has been something of a block on development. And the committee wanted more clarity about how water flow reduction measures could be considered and more detail to be provided, including a robustness around whether it would work, basically, and whether they could be considered reliable measures that would genuinely make a difference, or whether this was something that actually might not work in the end, and that we would suffer from in the end through loss of water in the aquifer. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. I mean, I think the government's paying for the work on reducing water use within our own housing stock, so jolly well better work. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Okay, thank you. Any other comments, please? Thank you very much, Scrutiny, for their. Yes, so Councillor Hawkins.
Thank you, Leader. Just to make a comment on the point about developer briefings for planning committee. I mean, this is something that is highly encouraged because it is the means whereby developers can understand what is of importance to the community through the members, and they do come back with better applications, designs, which is precisely what our communities want. And so I will continue to encourage that because we say to developers to talk to us. And it means that it's more efficient, it's more beneficial, and it's actually cost saving for everyone. So that is what I will just add to that. Thank you.
Thank you, yes, and I think it's working very well, actually. So, okay, so moving on to the recommendations. Sorry. Thank you. Thank you, 1655. Thank you. So reviewing the plan set out in Appendix A and authorise the Chief Executive to make minor wording changes for the final draft in consultation with me. So, do members agree with the recommendations?
Agree.
Anyone want to vote against? Anyone want to abstain? No. So, Cabinet therefore agrees the recommendations. So the next two items are about purchase of more housing for our housing stock. If anybody wants to talk about money and how much is being paid for this stock, then we will have to go into closed session. But if you're happy to have a conversation that doesn't include the commercially sensitive information, then we'll stay in public session. Okay, all right, we'll stay in public session, thank you. So the first item is the acquisition of 82 affordable homes in Northstowe. So Councillor Batchelor, I imagine.
Thank you very much, Leader. More good news. So 82 affordable homes for Northstowe. They're going to be delivered over the next 3 or 4 years. There's a robust system of financial viability assessment, which this has been through and meets all our requirements. So I'm happy to move the recommendation that we approve the acquisition and proceed to contract.
Marvellous, thank you. Councillor Henry Batchelor?
Yeah, happy to second, Leader. We just looked at the authority monitoring report that looks at the numbers of affordable houses delivered, and quite clearly, should we take these on plus the next item, we're going very strong. I think we're going to be teeming at the ears with affordable houses before too long. So yeah, more than happy to support this. Obviously not going to go into the details, we're in public session. So yeah, happy to second, Leader.
Lovely. We've almost hit the target for the last 12 months and we've only just got into February. Kirsten, is there anything you want to add on this one?
No, just as Councillor Batchelor said, we are paying off in the required period. It's perhaps worth capturing that the reason we like to agree the acquisition significantly in advance of when the houses will be delivered is we're securing sort of 2028 houses at 2025's prices. So there is always a sense in us working quite in advance on our pipeline, and the pipeline's looking really strong. Thank you.
Lovely. So with the prices being fixed on it. Excellent. Well done. Well done. And very nice to see that we've got 14 houses with wheelchair accessibility, which will go down very well indeed. And the majority of them are two beds. So that's great, because that's what we've got a massive shortage of. Any other comment? No. So well done, Kirsten and your team, as always. Recommendations on page 1687. We're approving the acquisition and authorising service manager to proceed to contract with the developer. Do members agree with the proposal?
Right.
Anyone voting against? Anyone abstaining? No. So members agree and carry the proposal. Lovely. And moving on to the last item, which is 21, which is the acquisition of 14 affordable homes in Cottenham. So over to you, Councillor Batchelor again.
Right, thank you. Yes, yet another 14 affordable homes. And on that, perhaps it is worth saying, since Kirsten Donaldson was with us earlier when we were discussing the housing revenue account and how pleased the whole Cabinet was about the numbers that we're now delivering, perhaps amongst the best in the country for that. And this is being achieved. I wouldn't underestimate the amount of work involved in all this. You've got to go through a contract, a bidding system. You've got to make sure the developer is actually delivering what they've contracted to deliver, which isn't always easy. And I might say this is all being delivered by a team of only 6. So brilliant work there. And this is another batch that I think these actually add to the 600 forward. There's a nod there, so we're approaching 700 in our forward programme. So it's brilliant work, well done, and I move the recommendation.
Fantastic. Who's seconding this one? Henry, thank you.
Yeah, me again. So yeah, happy to second. Yeah, more of the same, more good news. It's probably worth also noting that Kirsten and her team don't only deliver affordable houses, but they also deliver our own developments, i.e. the Unity Centre at Northstowe, the Sports Pavilion at Northstowe. And, we're a small team at Aurora District Council. So, I think we have got a team, in-house that we should be very proud of. So, yeah, I hope we can, certainly move that forward when we unitarise in a few years' time. So, yeah, well done to Kirsten and her team, and happy to second.
Thank you. My understanding this is over and above the Section 106 one, so the developer of their own volition decided to hand over more houses for affordable.
Yes, so there has been a slight redesign of a small part of this parcel. So I will just point members to paragraph 11 of this report. So these are not Section 106 properties. We are already the registered provider for the Section 106 properties on the scheme. These are not Section 106 properties, and they're actually going into our pipeline as part of our bidding for the social and affordable homes funding via Homes England, which opens in March this year. So these, everything pays off, so the viability is all there. We can afford it regardless, but we will be seeking external funding from Homes England to contribute to this particular scheme.
Okay, well, that's got to be good news, hasn't it? Well done. Councillor Williams.
Yeah, I think it's also worth adding, thank you very much, I mean, this is brilliant work, is that we're doing all this without actually owning any land, apart, I mean, apart from the land in Campbell, which we bought a couple of years ago, we're doing this with developers without actually having any land to contribute. And unlike another council down the road, which is using its land to redevelop and provide affordable homes. So this is fantastic and well done, and I think hopefully we'll see even more of this.
Yeah, fantastic. Good news. Thank you very much. Yes, did you want to say anything else, Kirsten?
I was just going to come back in on what Councillor Williams is pointing out there. We do have a very small amount of land, and Councillor Batchelor, I'm sure, will bring back for an update in the coming months that we have just let a contract for architects to develop those parcels of our own land, and they will also go into the social and homes funding programme. So we are seeking funding to deliver houses over and above the Section 106 on the small parcels of land that we do own. So we're trying to come at this from all angles now.
Perfect. Good news. Councillor Hawkins, did you want to come in? Well done. Brilliant. Lovely news. Okay, so, hang on, I've just lost it all. Let's just come back. Recommendations on page 1695, thank you. We approve the acquisition, authorising the service manager to proceed to contract, and approve the onward sale of the relevant shared ownership homes, of which there are 2. So, do Cabinet agree with the proposals?
Agree.
Anyone voting against? Anyone abstaining? And the Cabinet therefore agrees the recommendations, and that brings us to the end of this meeting.
Do we need to know the number of pages total?
Quite a lot of pages, yes, we've got into the 1700s, hey-ho, and I know we all read every single page. So next meeting of Cabinet's on the 24th of March. Thank you very much, everybody. Could Cabinet just stay behind for a photo opportunity, please? Thank you very much, everyone.